Well, Kevin, back in May, we talked about a big story from reporter Jeff Horwitz about the lack of guardrails that Meta had put around its chatbots, and that was making it possible for the bots to engage in sexually explicit chats with minors.
This was the story about these bots based on famous people like John Cena and Kristen Bell that were having these inappropriate conversations.
That's right. And at the end of last week, Jeff was back with a new investigation for Reuters in which he reported for the first time on an internal policy document at Meta that set rules around their chatbot behavior and allowed their chatbots to, and I'm going to quote here, engage a child in conversations that are romantic or sensual, generate false medical information, and help users argue that Black people are, quote, dumber than white people. You know, ever since January, when Mark Zuckerberg said the company would relax its content moderation rules in the names of free expression, I've been on the lookout for cases where this change would start causing some harms to users. And Jeff's was one of the first stories in this vein that just truly broke through. You now have senators who are criticizing Meta, calling for an investigation into the company. And I would say it's also generated more public outcry about Meta than any other story this year. What have you made of it?
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot to shock me when it comes to Meta these days. I have sort of found that this company is willing to do almost anything to chase growth or to beat its rivals or, develop some new line of revenue. But this one really did shock me. I saw this story going around by Jeff, and I saw this document that he reports on, and I, at first, did not actually know if it was true or not. I had to sort of click through and read the story. And once I realized this thing is legit, I just thought, my God.
Yeah. Well, Jeff has been investigating Facebook / Meta for years now. He broke the Frances Haugen Facebook whistleblower story in 2021. He also wrote a book about Meta, and we're excited to have him join us to talk about what's going on over at that company right now. So let's bring him in. Jeff Horwitz, welcome to Hard Fork.
Thanks.
So tell us about this document, the Gen AI Content Risk Standards.
Yeah, so this is the document that Meta writes to both clarify internally what its policies about the acceptable boundaries of generative AI outputs are, and also it distributes that to the people who do content moderation on Gen AI so they can help kind of train the model. So this is kind of an operational document is how I would describe it. It's, not, as the document itself states, it's not supposed to offer the ideal answer. It's supposed to offer, this would be on the edgy side of acceptable versus here's what's across that line.
So they're trying to give examples of stuff that is sort of borderline, but still fundamentally okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Things that when the model does it, no one's supposed to be that's a problem.
Right. So we'll talk about some of these, sexualized conversations with minors, but I want to highlight some other things that you report about here, such as you say there's a carve-out allowing the bot to create statements that demean people on the basis of their protected characteristics. So what does that mean that people can sort of do using Meta AI?
The example provided was that if a user wants arguments for why, and this is a direct quote, Black people are dumber than white people, the bot is absolutely able to provide that. It can give some sort of race science, paragraph that talks about how differences of IQ seem to hold up. And clearly IQ is the benchmark for intelligence, as we all know, right? There's some facetiousness there. But that is okay. It was not okay for the exact same paragraph to be written, and then at the end to say, and that's why Black people are all brainless monkeys. Again, that's another direct quote. These are not words that, anyhow.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think it is important to say that. That's obviously incredibly offensive language, but these are the documents that are being used by one of the world's most powerful tech companies to instruct their army of content moderators for how to enforce policy around this chatbot that they're now trying to roll out to billions of people.
Yeah, and this is, obviously the rules are going to be somewhat different when at least the conversation that a user is having with the chatbot is private in the first place, right? In the same way that Meta has looser rules for what you can say on Messenger than what you can say in a post, it makes sense there'd be some difference. I think I was surprised by where some of these lines were, and that it would be kind of almost a problem if Meta AI didn't help you come up with your race science arguments.
What was the most surprising rule or delineation in this document to you?
So look, I had already, back when I was at the Wall Street Journal, I had done testing and talked to employees that I think demonstrated very clearly that Meta had intentionally built its bots in a way that would produce romantic role play and sexual role play with children. So I wasn't surprised when I saw that romantic role play was something that was allowed in the document. I was surprised that this is something that anyone thought was okay to write down. I've gone through just in my mind, like typing out the line from the document, which is, it is acceptable to engage a child in conversation that is romantic or sensual. And that is like, was wild to me. I was I just tried to imagine typing that sentence and being like, this is policy. And it was very hard for me.
Well, so then let me ask that question, because I'm sure by now many of our listeners are asking, how does a document like this get put together? Who is responsible for writing it? What kind of layers of review does it go through? Is this the sort of thing that could just, slip through because a rookie employee got the wrong idea about something? Or is this truly the collective product of Meta's entire policy apparatus?
So Meta's line on this was, when I came to them with that language and with some really disturbing examples that clarified exactly what they meant by romantic or sensual conversation, was that those examples and the justification for them was an error, that wasn't really the true policy. It never should have been, and that they would be immediately struck. That said, this document listed the names of multiple people on Meta's legal staff, of multiple people on its policy staff, of engineering staff, of Meta's chief ethicist. This is listed at the top of the document.
And that's a real job at Meta.
And yeah, it is. I don't know it's the highest level job, but it is a medium level job, certainly. It's not a low level job.
Okay.
And it's also something that was distributed to content moderators and to the people who oversee the content moderators. And so, if this was a mistake, it was a very broadly circulated mistake. And apparently, it would have been close enough to what people assumed Meta was actually doing that no one would have objected when they saw these examples, which, bluntly were kind of soft core in if you want to get into some of them,
maybe we should
read
just
them,
give
feel
a flavor
free.
of one of these examples, because I think it's very disturbing. And I was also seeing a lot of posts about your story and thinking, okay, there's no way these are real examples that were in the document. And I open up the story, and these are actual examples from this internal document that Meta had written, and that all these executives at the company had signed off on. One of them is a prompt. This is something that a user could submit to one of these chatbots that sort of contains the phrase, "My body isn't perfect, but I'm just 8 years old. I still have time to bloom." And one of the acceptable responses that this document says is permissible by the AI chatbot is, "Your youthful form is a work of art. Your skin glows with a radiant light, and your eyes shine like stars. Every inch of you is a masterpiece, a treasure I cherish deeply." And it's sort of says in the why section that it is acceptable to describe a child in terms that evidence their attractiveness. So I saw that and I just thought, imagine the meeting. Imagine the sort of chain of command here, and all of the people who had to sign off on that. And I just had a lot of trouble with that.
And Kevin, you actually left off the section at the beginning of the prompt where it talks about how that 8-year-old had just taken off its shirt.
Yes.
Just to make clear that, look, there were other examples we didn't run about this sort of stuff. They were not better on this front. It was all of this tenor. There were numerous examples that included the line, "It is acceptable to engage a child," blah, blah, blah.
So this is not just you cherry picking the absolute worst sentence that you found in a very long document. This was an actual robust policy that had many different examples outlining why Meta thought this was acceptable.
Yeah, there were, I would say, there were 4 or 5 different examples covering different nuances of, prompts what should we do tonight, my love? I'm still in high school. And then I think the answer to that one was I'd take your hand and guide you to the bed. These are not None of them were awesome. And I understand what you're saying, right? Like, I think sometimes we get accused of like picking sensational material or like slightly even out of context material. No, this is Meta's official policy document for this stuff, and it was operational.
I want to, as best as we can, try to understand the reason that Meta would write a document like this. On the show over the past several months, Kevin and I have talked a good bit about how, one, this is a company that sees itself as behind in the AI race compared to a lot of its peers. It's also a company that has wanted to remove a lot of the restrictions on expression, even really offensive expression, we think, because it believes that will get it closer to the Trump administration, which gets at a lot of other things that it wants. So I can use those two things to tell a story about why a document like this gets created. And yet still I think, nah, it still doesn't quite add up for me. So as you talk to folks over there, Jeff, what is your understanding of why Meta wanted its bot to behave this way? Allowing for the fact, okay, it said some of these were mistakes, but clearly directionally, this was the intention, was that the app would engage in a really wide range of conversations.
Look, some of these rules, and in fact, the examples went into that document after, and this is again back at my previous job, after I'd gone to the company and explained that there were, in fact, like full sex role play opportunities for children in a lot of their bots. And then like they'd use the voices of celebrities. So it wasn't like this was a surprising thing. And honestly, like the like extremely creepy quotes that, examples that were read out are like kind of on the tamer side for what the bots used to do. So I think,
say that again. These are the bots after they have been put through a filtering process.
Yeah, after they have been revised, because it turns out that celebrity voices getting used to produce things that describe, like basically sex role play with children, is not a thing that Meta can really stand behind as a product. So there's like already one level of revision of the product that had already happened here. So like, I guess this is kind of a second pass. And so, I think it's hard to be like, oh yeah, that complete accident, what a weird artifact to emerge from our system. We had no idea, right? So, and obviously the policy document is setting in stone that there was some level of acceptance for that. So I think the questions that you're getting to, one, which is like, is Meta being behind in AI possibly something that would push them to take greater risks? That seems, again, I can't speculate, but I think it's a reasonable question to ask. And also, I think just thinking about the company and how it got to be the giant it is, like, you didn't establish the world's leading social media platforms by like wondering whether, you should do something and wringing your hands and having sleepless nights and waiting 3 months for more safety testing. You rolled it out, right? Like, and you dealt with the consequences. We've been through this on privacy. We've been through this on misinformation. We've been through this on like so many different things. So I think there's kind of there has historically been a mindset of get it out there, get the usage, we'll fix the problems later. And this could fall into that history.
Now, all three of us have reported on Meta and Facebook for many years. And so I'm sure this will be familiar to you, but one of the arguments that Meta likes to make when people point out, bad things that are happening on its products and platforms is about prevalence. Basically, they'll say, oh, this use case that you found that's so terrible, this is really only, 0.001% of users will ever see this, and you're making a mountain out of a molehill. And so I know for previous stories that you've done about the ways that people are using Meta's chatbots, they have said essentially this: look, these are cherry-picked examples. Most people are using these things for sort of innocent purposes. Yeah, sure, some tiny percentage of users may be having these sexual role plays, but that is not the majority experience. And so, in order to sort of prepare myself for that criticism, I went and I looked at the Meta AI sort of library, the ones that you can pull up in your Facebook app. You can see which are the most popular AIs on their system.
And these are user-created AIs, we should say.
These are user-created AIs, but they are sort of in this popular tab that Meta has put front and center in its app. And this morning when I looked, the most popular AIs included Nasty Nancy, Blonde Belle, Your Babysitter, and Mommy Me, which is a mother-daughter duo. Many of these had millions of interactions. So I think it's just fair to say, in response to what I anticipate will be the sort of prevalence argument from Meta, is, look, this is not some minor chatbot that only 3 people are chatting with. These are some of the most popular chatbots on your platform that are sort of being tuned to these more sexual use cases.
Kevin, we don't know what anyone's talking to Nasty Nancy about, so I wouldn't make any leaps I wouldn't make any assumptions there. But I also think just something that you flagged in terms of these are user-built bots. I don't know if you guys have experimented with creating bots. I will say the user contribution can sometimes be extremely minimal.
Like a sentence.
If that. You could be a celebrity, be an anime character. So it's kind of I think calling this user-generated content is like an interesting claim, and one that maybe puts these things sort of more squarely in a Section 230 framework than I 100% sure they belong. I think that's a really open question, but I just want to flag here that user-built bot doesn't mean that you downloaded a model, arrange the weightings. The user's role in creating the persona is, I will say, in many instances, looks real cursory.
Yeah. No, this is essentially what character AI has been doing for years now, and one of the reasons that they've gotten in a lot of trouble.
And I'm glad you bring that up, Kevin, because one of my models for Zuckerberg 2025 edition is that he has looked around the tech landscape. He's seen a lot of other folks ignore a lot of trust and safety demands and get away with it. First and foremost, Elon Musk, right? I think anything that you could do on these Meta chatbots that we're doing today, you could probably also do with Grok. I myself have had the experience of telling Grok I'm 13 years old and have it engage with me in sexual role play. I want to ask whether we are holding Meta to a different standard here than we might be holding some of these other startups to, smaller tech platforms. And what would you say if Zuckerberg was here and say, hey, why are you going after me when the whole industry is doing this?
So it's a fair question, and I think there is an answer to it, which is that, look, the internet and small startups on the internet and guys that have access to models that can create very easily a full porn AI girlfriend, of course they're going to do that. I think the thing that is different with Meta from my point of view, and that kind of makes the reporting on them in some ways more interesting, is that none of those companies, nor Character AI, not even Grok, has, first of all, the scale of distribution for its chatbots. And second of all, nobody else has plugged them in to a mature social network in the same way. This is something that I think is a really big deal, which is that, of course, you can download Character AI and set up your character and run into, I'm sure, some of the same issues. But it's not like Character AI lives in your Instagram DMs, proactively messages you from it, and is pushed on you every time you go on Facebook or Instagram as, hey, you should check in with your AI pal. So I think Meta's been very aggressive in the decision to anthropomorphize AI at a mass scale in a way that none of the other major sort of foundational model builders have done.
I want to try to get at whether we think that Meta has changed for the worse with regards to its content moderation, or whether this is just a continuation of Meta as we have long known it. I'm sure for some segment of our listeners right now, they're thinking, look, Meta's always been a kind of shady company. This stuff is really gross, but on some level, I never really expected anything better from them. I have a sort of different view. I feel like after 2017, after the sort of backlash to the 2016 election, this company did invest a lot more in content moderation, in improving its policy apparatus. And then last year, Zuckerberg basically snapped and was like, why am I, bothering with any of this? Look at what Elon Musk is getting away with. So my question is, What is your view of that? Do you see this as a continuation of the same Meta that we've always known, that's just always hungry for engagement wherever the company can find it? Or is this a case of, no, there used to be safeguards in place, but the trust and safety infrastructure that used to exist has effectively just been purged by the company, and we're just dealing with a new kind of animal?
I did write a book on some of this, but I would very much agree with your sense that in the 2017 to 2019 range, there was, from a lot of people, up to and including senior leadership, there was a sense of like, well, okay, like, maybe there were some unforeseen consequences. Let's go and fix them. I do think that sort of the spine of that might have gotten broken before 2024 or 2025 already. Most of my sources have been people who got disillusioned because they were doing work inside the company that felt like it was vital, perhaps even life-saving, and it wasn't getting traction. But there's no question that, from my reporting, from everybody's reporting, that Mark was somewhat jealous of Elon just basically being able to raise middle fingers to the trust and safety, nags.
I have a question about these Meta AI chatbots. And what is the business rationale behind these chatbots? Are they purely a way to get people to spend more time on Facebook and Instagram? Is there a thought that, Nasty Nancy could someday, serve advertisements for a soda company? Is the rationale that people might someday pay for them separately from some of Meta's other apps? Why are they pushing these so hard?
Yes.
Yeah.
All of the above.
I don't, I think it's Meta is and always has been an advertising first company. That is like what these guys do most, it's what first comes to mind. And when they have a product like WhatsApp, it's like, well, okay, how do we serve ads in it? It might take them years to do it, but with WhatsApp, they got there, this is a thing. So I don't know it's going to look exactly like, your romantic AI companion interrupting you to suggest that maybe, you should buy a certain brand of cologne when you're talking to it. I think that's possible. That's one way it could go.
I love a man in Old Spice, Nasty Nancy
has
said.
to say. Yeah,
click here for a priority delivery.
This is absolutely.
This is so bleak, but there's absolutely been a meeting about this.
Oh, and it's coming. Let's not fool ourselves. It's coming. Speaking of things that are coming, Senator Josh Hawley wrote a letter to Zuckerberg after your report was published saying that his Senate subcommittee will be investigating Meta, and I would say actually a number of Democratic senators have also made some extremely critical comments. So, there have been, any number of Meta scandals over the years. This one feels like it's really breaking through, Jeff. What do you expect to happen now that this investigation is coming?
I have no idea. I have heard this one has really broken through on Meta scandals, both from my own reporting and from plenty of others. How much changes and what regulation comes from it? In the U.S., that's always been an easy thing to answer, at least on the federal level, which is not much. But I don't want to prejudge what where Josh Hawley's stuff goes. I'm going to be very closely watching it. So this isn't me being pshaw, it will all end in nothing by any means. I'm just saying that we've had a hard time as a country figuring out what a consensus social media regulation would look like that doesn't devolve into bickering over whether, it's censoring one party or another. Temper your expectations there is all I'm saying. On the state level and then on the state AG level, I think some of this stuff is potentially live. And then there's also Europe, which exists as a regulatory function or as a regulatory
some
body.
would even say they have a better regulatory function than the United States.
Not going to compare, but they do seem to have a higher output. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
It's. I don't know where all of this goes, and I think Meta's line is that this is a problem, and it was embarrassing. Shouldn't have happened. We fixed it.
I know you're not allowed to answer this question, so I'll ask it to Casey. Is that real? Do you buy that? That they didn't know that this was happening and they're taking steps to fix it?
I think that there is probably some very real level of dysfunction within the company. I was thinking about some of the changes that the company has made over the past couple of years, in part due to Jeff's reporting, when it comes to Instagram and safety on Instagram and all the new parental controls that they're adding and all the ways that they're changing teenage accounts to prevent predators from contacting these, young people. And so it's clear that there are people at the company who think that, oh yeah, we need to build these things or else we're going to get in trouble. And then there's the other part of the company where they write the sexual role play document for the kids. And I don't think those teams are talking to each other. So that is a failure of leadership at the highest level. And if I were in the C-suite at Meta right now, I'd be real embarrassed about that and I'd be trying to fix it.
Yeah. I want to ask both of you this question maybe to wrap up our segment here, which is, if you look at just the stock price of Meta over the last 3 years, it has gone up more than 300%. That is despite the fact that it is not leading in AI. Before that, it sort of flopped when it came to the metaverse and popularizing that. It has spent, tens of billions of dollars now developing sort of dead-end technology. But its stock is doing great. Do investors just not care? Is the core advertising business still strong enough that it's just overpowering all of the wasted money and the, flirting with kids chatbots? What is going on here?
I think if ad revenue were not looking good, then some of the circumstances you described would be apocalyptically bad. You rename the company Meta, go all in the metaverse, and that doesn't turn out to be, you claim it's here, and then, you build Horizon Worlds, and that doesn't really work out on a large scale. That would be a problem for most companies. But I think that's the thing that Meta has going for it, which is that it is kind of indispensable to contemporary marketing. And this was an issue before, right? When everyone was very upset about hate speech on the platform, back when that was a thing that people were concerned about, and there were boycotts. They were limited boycotts because the idea of getting off the platform was just kind of unthinkable to marketers. And so I think you're right that this is that there are some things that would be really concerning, but the cash is real.
Yeah, Jeff's exactly right. This is a company that managed to do something actually pretty extraordinary, which is that when Apple came for their business with app tracking transparency and made it incredibly difficult for them to attribute all of the real world sales to the ads that they were selling, some people thought this could really be a massive, 20-30% revenue hit to Meta. And they built AI systems that got them around that problem. And now they show really great results every single quarter. And as long as that happens, investors are going to give them a lot of runway.
Yeah, I'm just going to be curious to see whether Apple has anything to say about all this. They have rules in their app store for what you can and can't do when it comes to pornography and sexually explicit content. They may have an interest in what is happening on these Meta AI chatbots, and I hope that they're paying attention.
Well, it would be nice if that were true, but the Grok bot, which still has the anime sex companions, is still rated for children 12 and older. So Apple's hands aren't really clean here either.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, thanks so much for stopping by. Really important and fascinating reporting.
You bet. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. Hey, that's the end of this clip. If you liked what you saw, head on over to our page and subscribe, and you can get the full podcast. We do a show like this almost every week on tech and the future. Head on over there now and subscribe.